for me, yoga is more about getting in tune with the inner landscape and your breath and how your body feels when you're moving through postures. And I think a hot yoga space just isn't so aligned with that traditional aspect of yoga.
Welcome to the Success Fitness Podcast. I am your host, Christian Evans. This podcast is about improving our relationship with nutrition and exercise to achieve success in our fitness journey. And our special guest today, Hannah Ramlo, Executive Director of Soulside Healing Arts Yoga Studio here in Peoria, Illinois, will help us do just that by sharing her story of why she opened Soulside and who it's for, the difference between traditional and hot yoga, and how yoga can help improve your overall performance. Without further ado, Success Fitness family, please welcome Hannah Ramlo to the podcast. How you doing today, Hannah?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Now, usually my first question to my guest is, how's the weather where you are? But being that we are in the same city, Peoria, Illinois, go ahead and chime in about how are you liking this warmer weather compared to what it was last week?
You know, I loved the white Christmas. I like it being really cold right now this time of year because I like to be moving very slowly at this time of year. So it's like an excuse to do that when it's cold and icy and 0 degrees. So I was digging that. And then today it's like springtime. It just like threw me off.
Right. So I like this weather right here. You know, I don't mind a little bit of cold, but that black ice that's on the road,
that's
just
no
people
fun.
driving, kind of crazy. And being that it's, New Year's coming up, New Year's Eve is tomorrow. And we just had Christmas last week. How was your Christmas? Was this your first Christmas with your newborn?
She was born September 21. So she was 3 months old last Christmas.
Gotcha.
So this was our first Christmas with her walking and
she's walking now,
tearing into some of her own presents and stuff. So we had a blast. She is a little socialite. She loved all the parties and the family and friends, and she was just living her best life. So it was very fun for us to watch.
Awesome. Is she doing any yoga moves just yet, or
we try? She kind of watches me, and she's not really getting into it yet, but she has definitely tried to mimic me in some of the things that I do. So it'll be fun as that develops.
Okay, for those obviously they didn't hear it because I didn't record it, but Hannah recorded a podcast, like she said, before we started recording this podcast today. It was almost 3 years ago. It was at the top of the pandemic in 2020. And time has gone by just so fast. We recorded via Zoom, and the podcast went great. And I let her know, I was like, okay, by the time we're done with this, or when we're done with this, I'm gonna reach back out to have you on my podcast. Now here we are almost 3 years later, and the time just goes by so fast. You had a newborn, you had a baby, September, 2021. And now, like you say, 14 months and starting to walk and do baby yoga. Maybe that'd be something.
Life changes so fast.
Yes. Now, speaking of yoga, how did you get into yoga?
So I started yoga when I was in college, and it was definitely me trying to stay physically fit without really ever having loved cardio or the things that made me sweat a lot. I was just not into those things, but I knew I wanted to stay fit. I for sure wanted to avoid the dreaded freshman 15 that people talk about gaining when you go to school. And my gym at my school had some free yoga classes. So I thought, well, I'll just give this a try, and maybe it'll be a way to move my body and stay in shape without having to run, and it turned out to be that for me. I started really, really enjoying it. And it was so much more than that for me. It did keep me moving my body and kept me physically fit, but it was also my mental health that really, really benefited from practicing yoga at school when I was the stressors of college and having a job while you're trying to do school and then beyond. And it just became this stable rock in my life. No matter what was going on, I would always find a yoga studio to practice and keep going in my practice. And it just kept me so stable and grounded. And I haven't stopped since then.
I got you. I got you. And you, the college you went to is what?
I I went to Loyola in Chicago, Loyola
Loyola.
University.
Okay,
Yep.
Loyola. Okay. And so then, and how did you go from Loyola to Bradley?
Yeah. Yeah. So after Loyola, I studied English and business and
Okay.
didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in the human services. I really liked social work and had some internships in the nonprofit sector. And I knew I wanted to blend what I was doing into that field. So I ended up moving to Cincinnati and working at a nonprofit in Cincinnati. And while I was there, I found a yoga studio. I was like flitting around to different studios because it's so expensive to practice
Right.
yoga in any one place. So I was trying to find like Groupons and deals, and I would just go to whatever studio had a good deal. And I found this one studio that had a pay as you can structure. So I could go
Right.
in and donate whatever I could for a yoga class. So I was able to continue my practice and pay, $5 a class. And at the time working in a nonprofit, that's all I could afford. So I just kind of filed that away in my mind and kept going. And I ended up moving to Europe for a year,
Wow.
living in Italy and then Poland
Okay.
before coming back here. I grew up in the area near Peoria. And so I came back for a master's program at Bradley in nonprofit leadership. So I was still wanting to work in the nonprofit field and having some experience in that, started to see a lot of the flaws in leadership of nonprofits, just that it's such a hard field to work in. Employees get really burnt out because
Mm-hmm.
you're just butting up against the system over and over and trying to
Right.
get
Right.
people through that system. And I wanted to find out how to lead a nonprofit and take care of the employees and the people working there. And I wanted to be able to blend my like being on the ground working with people as well as doing some of the administrative stuff so that I could have a more well-rounded schedule to my life and my day. So I found this program at Bradley and it brought me back home, back to Peoria.
Are you looking for a personal trainer that will focus on you to help achieve success in your fitness journey? If yes, please book your in-person or Zoom one-on-one personal training sessions with me, Christian Evans, at christiansweightsuccess.net.
Okay. Okay. And how long were you at Bradley during your studies?
That was a 2-year master's program. So I graduated from Bradley in 2018 and
Okay.
opened Soulside in 2018 at the end of that program,
Okay.
June 1st, 2018.
Okay. So you explained a little bit here just a few seconds ago, but what was that journey like? Okay, you're a college student and you're experimenting or experiencing and learning about the ups and downs of the nonprofit business. And how did you know, like, okay, I want to open a studio, a yoga studio, a nonprofit yoga studio? What was that journey like going from college student to now business owner?
Yeah, so the master's program I was in had the opportunity to do a self-guided independent study on a topic of our choosing. So I pitched to my professors that I wanted to study this model, this nonprofit yoga studio model, and look at other studios that have done this in the US or outside of the US, and put together a business plan and like look at the feasibility of opening something like that here in Peoria. And this was all sparked by that one pay-as-you-can yoga studio that I found in Cincinnati right after college. And they didn't survive, they had to close. So while that was so present in my mind, like that model is so beautiful, I wonder if I can recreate it. I also was very aware that it's a fragile model and how can I do it successfully and sustainably? And like I mentioned, I had learned that practicing yoga in studios is often very expensive. So I had learned how much yoga had benefited me. And I'd also learned how inaccessible yoga was for so many people. So I wanted to blend these learnings into creating something that would make yoga more accessible, both physically and financially. And we can talk about the physical limitations and the kind of like preconceptions people have about yoga in a little bit, hopefully, but that financial aspect was really what I was focusing on with the nonprofit leadership program, building the model. So I got that whole semester with the support of Bradley, both the nonprofit leadership program as well as the School for Entrepreneurship at Bradley, and had some contacts there, and they just helped me get this idea, like get my brain wrapped around this idea. I really knew that I wanted to take yoga into a social service model or social service setting and build a life around the work that I knew I would really love.
I got you. Now, being that your studio is in Peoria, what were some of the key things that were missing in yoga in the Peoria, Illinois area that you know that you could improve on or bring something different here?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I would love to, I wish I knew what your listeners knew about the Peoria area and about yoga. So I don't know that, but if you're from here, if you've done yoga here in Peoria, you know that we have a really rich yoga community. We have several different studios for our population that each one kind of has a specialty and focuses on different areas or styles of yoga. And so there's a lot of choice. But there isn't, or there wasn't a lot of choice for like the south side of Peoria or the Peoria below War Memorial, kind of. The studios sort of sprinkled through more of North Peoria.
I got you.
And they were very like studio centric. So practices and classes were in the studio spaces. So I really wanted to create something that had a studio, but we were taking yoga into schools and social service agencies and the places that could really, really benefit from these mindfulness practices that yoga teaches. But for people who maybe didn't know that was an option for them or didn't understand that that's like a path towards holistic healing for them. So I saw that as something that was missing, just that like outreach portion, and like building the inroads and the connections with those social service agencies in Peoria to be like, this is our expertise and our skill set. How can we bring it to you and to your clients, as well as your employees? Because as I mentioned before, people who work in that social service setting can be so burnt out, so exhausted. So how can we bring this to your clients and how can we bring this to your teams to help promote self-care? So that was one thing I saw missing. And then just the financial accessibility to have a beautiful studio space that doesn't skimp on like the design or the dignity of the space just because it's donation based. So people can still come here and have like a very Zen setting to do yoga, even though they're paying $1 or $2 or $5. Those were the two like big buckets of areas that I wanted to fill that I didn't see happening.
I got you. Now you mentioned about the stresses of social workers, of what they go through, what they went through, what they are going through, what they may go through, and yoga offers that release. Now, what are some of the body elements that yoga can help with, as well as the mental?
So virtually anything. It's so hard to answer that question because yoga can be tailored to anyone for any ailments and be really individualized. And I remember this was something that you and I connected on so well when we talked back in 2020, even though our practices are so different, our styles of fitness are so different, we really connected, I remember, on like the unique plan for each individual and making sure that it was something that was really safe and good for their body and didn't create feelings of shame or inadequacy, and that we were just like, how do we empower an individual? So yoga can do that too. And what I see often is that people come to a class and then get discouraged because the class isn't perfect for them. So there is there's opportunity for one-on-one private sessions or just communicating with the teacher before or after a class to make sure that you are using the class and the structure as a kind of like a guidepost, but not feeling like you have to do everything exactly the way the teacher shows or other people in the room are doing it. And so I'm saying that because there are certain ailments that will require a much gentler approach to yoga, or a much more tailored approach to yoga with certain poses that just don't work in somebody's body because of a certain injury or the way they're built or the way that their mobility is. But there is always a workaround. And it's really about making yoga work for you rather than trying to fit into like a very specific alignment or shape.
I got you. Now, being that you are a business owner and a mother, what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, the past year or so with my little one has really shifted how I work. I am so grateful that I had built Soulside to a point that gave me some flexibility by the time I had my baby. Because as other mothers or parents will know, it's just the day is unknown. You don't know when
Right.
you're going to need a nap. You don't know when they're going to be upset. Like you can't, it's very difficult to schedule meetings and then always be on time to them.
Right.
So I had a lot of flexibility already built into my schedule, which was wonderful. And my days now, I teach a few classes a week, not as many as I used to teach. As Soulside grew, we brought in more teachers. And so a lot of my duties are more back end, scheduling other teachers to go to the places that we teach or to fill the studio schedule. And I stay like connected to those community members more than
Okay.
showing up to teach. So I teach my favorite classes. I have 2 or 3 a week that I teach, and I have childcare
Okay.
for those. And then the rest of the time, like you have my to-do list and I do it when I can. So if she's napping, I try to get on my email. If, I have some help from family a couple times a week, that's when I get to work. But it's become my mentality has really had to shift.
Okay.
To build this up took a lot of just like grind and effort and staying with
Right.
every day. And now I have to be a little bit more okay with just like what gets done. And that's
Right.
better than nothing. And it's just like in a little bit of a period of maintenance and making sure that everything stays working from behind the
Right.
scenes.
Right. And the reason why I ask you that is because, are you hungry but only have 30 minutes to meal prep? Then download my new e-cookbook, What's a Meal Prep, at successfitnessstore.com. You will get 3 step-by-step written and visual recipes for one high-protein meal that's under 600 calories. I'll help you cook fresh salmon, steam fresh broccoli, and quinoa in under 30 minutes to help you stay on track of your fitness goals. So go to successfitnessstore.com to download your copy today. We are all trying to be the best version of ourselves, somewhat every day, right? And that can and may and should require, a workout, right? But we're so busy, with, work and, with you, business and motherhood and everything like that. And being that you're telling everybody that, okay, this is challenging for me too. And it should gives a little bit of alleviation to the listeners about, okay, you know what, if she's going through this, or if Christian's going through this and trying to fit their workout in, it's like everything is not guaranteed every single day. And it is a challenge to, work out or get what your, version of working out is in the midst of your business and your family, because obviously family is important and you have to run your business or whatever business looks like for each individual to take care and support their family. So I'm glad you let us know about your day.
Oh yeah. And
But
that mentality for business too, that just whatever gets done is better than nothing. I use
right.
it for my yoga practice and my
Right.
fitness practice too. It's, 5 minutes of mindful breathing, 5 minutes of stretching is better than nothing. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's all we're going to get in the day.
Right.
It's just like not getting down on yourself for that.
Yeah.
And you just keep going and do the little bit that you can. And there's nothing like motherhood to teach you that.
Yeah, I was talking to someone at the gym yesterday, and we are just talking about time, right? Like you just talked about, it's like even if it's 5 minutes of mindfulness, and we were just talking about, man, I don't have the hour and a half like I used to in the gym. As you get older, you get more responsibilities, and you have to just be more wiser, about your time. So an hour and a half workout may turn into an hour or 45 minutes. But like you said, you should not get down on yourself. That it's like, oh, I only have 45 minutes now. You do the best that you can. with the time that you have. Now, you mentioned earlier about bringing yoga to more of the south side of Peoria. Now, can you tell me the demographic of people that you have coming to your studio currently, and what are the typical questions that they ask you?
Yeah, so we are located on Adams Street near Adams and MacArthur. So like in the Warehouse District, 5 blocks south of Zion Coffee, if you're familiar.
Yeah.
And we chose this location really specifically because, well, one, we found this gorgeous building and wonderful landlords, but also it is this bridge between the newer development that's happening in the Warehouse District and these long-standing neighborhoods of Peoria that are some of the poorest in the state. And having a place like a yoga studio, or a third place, not home, not work, but somewhere that people can congregate and gather across differences, we really believe can heal not just individuals, but build bridges and heal community wounds as well. And so it's been our mission from the start that we are working towards having a demographic that mirrors the demographic of Peoria, which would be much more diverse than we currently see in most yoga studios. And it's a long challenge. It's going to take a long time because people who are drawn to yoga currently usually have some kind of expendable income, have the awareness of yoga already, or like have the body type that is often associated with yoga, mobile, flexible, able-bodied. So there's a lot of like breaking down of understanding that we've been doing over the past 4 years and will continue to do on who yoga is for. And we do see a much more diverse crowd here than I've seen in other studios I've worked in. We see a lot more men, which is not typical in a yoga setting. We see a larger age range. So this morning I taught a class. I had 13 people here. There was a 7-year-old who came with their mom and an 80-year-old in the class together. And so we try to form these classes that anyone can do and anyone can modify for their own bodies. And we do see that bringing in a larger like age bracket and especially gender bracket.
Okay.
We still have a long ways to go to really bring people in to the studio who live within like the 1 or 2 miles radius of Soulside, who could even walk here, just because it's not been historically true that a yoga studio locates in these communities. And so it just takes a long time, takes trust and staying power to just continue to do the work.
Right. Now, what's the most common question you get asked from your clientele about the services you offer?
Yeah, well, a lot of just like, I'm new to this. I've never done this before. What class should I do? Or, like, I can't even touch my toes. I don't think yoga is for me, that kind of sentiment. And the answer that I love that I've heard before is, it's like saying you're too dirty to take a shower. Like if you're too unflexible to start yoga, you got to start somewhere. So we kind of just stay lighthearted about it, and we welcome everybody in. There are a couple classes we recommend to brand new beginners, although all of our classes on the schedule are open to everyone. And so if you are brand new, we recommend that you kind of talk to a teacher before the class and just say, hey, I'm brand new here. If there's anything I need to know, let me know. Or if there's like an injury that you want to let the teacher know about, or something that you're concerned about, we're always open to just chat one-on-one with you before class starts. But like a gentle yoga class, we have a couple on the schedule called Gentle Yoga, and that's usually where I direct people who are not quite sure what to expect or not quite sure if their body can do all of that it entails.
I got you. Now, you mentioned earlier about the yoga classes that you like, or your I don't know, I can't remember how you worded it, but your favorite classes when you are able to teach. What are those classes that you favor more than the others?
So we have something on our calendar called Mindful Flow, which is what it sounds like. If you're familiar with yoga or you see other studios, you'll see vinyasa often. And a vinyasa style of yoga is like a move with every breath. So like an inhale takes you somewhere and an exhale takes you somewhere. And it's this flowing style of yoga. our mindful flow is similar to that, but slowed down. So it's not like breath per or movement per breath. It's a slower approach to a
Okay.
flow class. So you stay in poses a little bit longer.
Okay.
You're not rushing through anything, which allows you to really be a little more present with the breath. Not like be rushing your breath. So that's a style I really like to teach that is really adaptable to anyone in the room. So I usually come in with an idea of what I'm going to teach, and then I see who shows up, and I can kind of see if I need to shift it a little bit, or I can take it a little bit like deeper into deeper stretches because of the group, or we need to back off and kind of go more to the beginner basics due to the mobility that I see in the room. And that style of class really allows me to tailor to the group that shows up.
Okay.
I also just started teaching prenatal. I was trained this summer to teach prenatal yoga after doing prenatal yoga myself through my pregnancy, and just really, really loving having that option. And we don't have a ton of prenatal yoga teachers here in Peoria, so I wanted to get myself certified to teach that. So I do that as well now.
Awesome. Now, what's the difference between the yoga you teach and hot yoga?
Yeah, so our studio is in an old warehouse building, as you can see behind me. It's big brick walls, wood floors. On that like -0 degree day recently, our heater wouldn't get this place up beyond like 55 degrees. So there's no hot yoga happening here. We don't have heating structure. Sometimes we have cold yoga.
Yeah, cold yoga. That's something new for the area, right?
And it's an old building, so we did have the air go out for a couple days a few summers back, and then we had some hot yoga. So
okay,
it's not a high-tech hot yoga situation here. But we don't teach hot yoga because of the space, but also it's not a traditional form of yoga that favors from my perspective, it's not favoring a real presence and awareness of what's going on in the body. Some people love hot yoga. I've done it a couple times. It's not my thing. It makes your muscles stretch a little further, so you feel like you can go further in the yoga class. And sometimes it encourages you to go too far because you are in this environment where you're like pushing and trying to keep up, and everyone's just like dripping sweat, and it's really got this like workout fitness mindset. For me, yoga is more about getting in tune with the inner landscape and your breath and how your body feels when you're moving through postures. And I think a hot yoga space just isn't so aligned with that traditional aspect of yoga.
I got you. Now, with that being said, you said like hot yoga can kind of play a mind trick that you're a little bit more flexible than what you really are. With that being said, what are your least favorite and favorite muscle groups to train if you can focus on it during yoga?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about hot yoga. It's some people's cup of tea, and like there's a time and place where you just want to get lost in it and kind of not like just zone out. And I can totally understand that. I've heard a lot of people say like, I felt like I was going to die and then I didn't. And that to them is like the best. So, no shame, no shade if that's your thing. We're not teaching it here. But that being said, like I mentioned earlier, there are so many unique studios in Peoria where like, if you like a thing, you can find that at a specific studio. And it's really nice because we don't feel like we have to really compete with each other, because we're kind of like, okay, you do what you're good at, we do what we're good at. And we can kind of blend and like send each other clients and things. So that's a nice aspect. Muscle groups that I like. The hips are always like such a big request from people. There's a lot of tightness that gets built up from our lifestyle of sitting often. A lot of people's, job is keeping them still and seated for most of the day. So they come in with like low back pain and hip pain. And there's just like, I've heard it called the junk drawer of our emotions. There's just like this like sediment that settles at the hips, this biggest joint in the body. And so I really like stretches that can target the area around the hips and the glutes and just all that, like the stickiness that lands there. Least favorite, also the hips, because it's so like it can be so tender, it can be so tight that there are a lot of stretches that do target the hips that people kind of like dread. It's just like a hurts so good situation.
I got you. I got you. It's a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
Love-hate relationship. I got you. I got you. Now, what are your top 3 keys to success in one's fitness journey or yoga journey?
Oh gosh. So you asked me this on the pre-form and I'm trying to remember what I wrote.
Yeah, I said 5. I'm gonna reduce it down to 3.
Okay. I think I wrote something like to forget about numbers. For me, this is for me. There's a lot of like, I think a lot of your listeners are going to have a very different approach because mine has not been like weight loss based, and I can understand where numbers become very important in that journey.
Yes, right.
And so I just want to preface with like, in a really gentle yoga situation, which is what I have like gotten into, releasing the focus on numbers is so important for success to me. And it's like we talked about earlier, it's like not getting down on yourself when you don't hit a certain number. You're not like stepping on the scale every night. That's not why we do yoga. It's not about how many minutes you put in or how much weight you use in a yoga class. It's not about the numbers. And so releasing that in yoga, but then for me, taking that into anything else that I'm doing fitness wise has been really, really beneficial. And speaking as a woman and knowing that a lot of young women face the scrutiny of how their body looks and stepping on the weight and becoming really obsessed with calories and weight. And that it happened to me through high school and college. And I think it happens to so many women. So moving away from that mindset has been a huge key for my sustained journey in yoga and staying in this practice.
Yeah, because like you talked about with numbers, I know you got some more to add. Sorry to cut you off. But that was so important that you said about being so focused on these numbers. And I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago and we were going into that. And I think more and more people are starting to back away from this numbers based, this data, these analytics of who you are, even, got the watch on. And so I'm constantly looking at the analytics of me. And then it's like, okay, so how do I feel? Yes, we see these numbers and everything like that, which is cool, or it can be cool. But like you talked about with the hips and your love-hate relationship with that, I have a love-hate relationship with legs. You're starting to get into a love-hate relationship with numbers too, because it's, okay, how do I feel? Yeah, I see I burn this many calories, but I feel different. And just wanted to just really kind of dive a little bit more into that mentality of releasing that mindset of numbers. You put it more articulate than I just did, and that is so alleviating to hear. So I commend you on that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're kind of like thinking about that too, because it is such a slippery slope, I think, into an obsession that then becomes not mentally healthy. Even if you're like physically, you look more in shape than you ever have. How's your mind doing? And how's the obsession with that? So along the same lines then of what you were just talking about, how do you feel? I would say another key to success is finding ways to move that you really enjoy. And to this day, like I mentioned earlier, I've never been a person who loves cardio. I've never been a person who loves weightlifting, but I do those things in a way that I really enjoy by going on a walk or dancing with my baby in my house, playing fun music and getting my heart rate up by dancing with her, or the different yoga practices that I do. But finding a way to move your body to just like shake things up and get your blood flowing and your lymph flowing. But not for me, and my key to success has been figuring out how do I do that, and also just like love it, like not think of it as a workout.
Right. And number 3.
Number 3. Okay. Oh, I think I was gonna talk about competition. Oh, it's, all very similar, but releasing that drive to compete with others. This happens in a yoga class, it happens in the gym, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just like, guiding your focus back inward on how do you feel, how's it feeling in your body to move in this way, and not directing your focus outward on, am I doing enough? Am I doing the same as that person over there? Does my pose look the same as that person over there? It can be really hard to get out of that mindset. But it's so important to do that for a sustained long fitness journey where, we don't want our joints to stop working when we're 45 or 50 because we went too hard, like let's do this for a really long time.
Yes. And this comparative notion, like you just mentioned, again, you must have had cameras or a microphone or something in my house, because like everything that you're talking about, like me and my cousin were just talking about, where like this comparative thing, where now we have social media, right? So a lot of times one of the first things, we all do is, get up and we're checking our social media, and it's comparison. And we're chasing after the highlight of the person that we follow, because 90% of the time that is what we see online. That is what we see in social media. And that can have a negative effect. Like you said, it leads to yoga sessions or people in yoga sessions, and it's like, okay, I'm looking over to my right, I'm looking over to my left, okay, this person is bringing their leg this way, or they're just maybe more flexible or less flexible. And I see that in the gym too. I see it all the time, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm lifting this weight now because of the guy back there, and they go so hard, then within a year you see them walking on a cane. And it's like, oh, I had to get surgery because of deadlifting too much or whatever. And it's just do what you can. It's cool to be a motivator. It's cool to be inspired. It's cool to go off of the vibe that you're around with the other people in the gym. But don't get to a point to where you're so lost in that you start comparing yourself and then try to do what that person is doing. And like you said earlier, with the mentality of hot yoga, it can make you think totally different other than what you are and the reality of what you're doing. And we're talking about numbers too. Me and my cousin, she's a therapist, we were just talking about just numbers and everything. It's like, okay, yeah, you may look physically fit, but how is your mental? How is your life outside of the four walls of the gym? How is your life outside of from being under a barbell, from squatting or bench pressing? And we're so in tune with these numbers, and like you said, so in tune with this comparative mindset that we need to take a step back just for a little bit to see how healthy this is, because we're all trying to be the best version of ourselves. And a lot of times, we can be a motivation for somebody else. And there are people looking at us, obviously, where we're just talking about, somebody being comparative. So with that being said, what advice would you give to those who are on the fence about starting yoga?
Yeah, I mean, yoga helps with all these things we're talking about, because it is the opportunity to tune out the outside noise that we see so often with social media or just other people in our lives, and really check in with what's going on internally. And so much of a yoga class is that tuning in, and just like a lot of opportunities to embody a self-awareness practice where we're just like, we'll put our hand on our heart and feel our heartbeat. We'll take a few breaths, we'll put our hand on our belly and feel our breath in our belly. And then just like from there, continue to guide this internal awareness, like almost like we're looking with a flashlight from the inside out of what's going on in different areas of the body. Where do we hold our emotions? Where do they get stored in the body? Where do they turn into tension, tight muscles? And how do we like breathe through that and create more space through a yoga practice? And then how do we take that beyond yoga and into our fitness practice or into our work and our life and our family life? There's a lot about just practicing creating space between a stressor and a response. And so the yoga that we offer here is like an embodied a practice. Like you get better at that, and then you're not reacting so quickly to your kids, you're not reacting so quickly to in your work environment. You get better and better at building the skill set to take a breath, take a beat, and move in ways that is most life-giving, most beneficial for your body and your mind. And it sounds like, how can all that fit into an hour yoga class? But it does. Like over time, the more that you stay with it, you are learning these tools from a movement basis, and then you start to just like input them into other areas of your life. It's really quite incredible. So I just encourage people to give it a shot. It's such a thing where you don't know till you know. You don't know till you
Right.
try. And a
Right.
lot of people have told me that. A lot of people have come in, myself included. That's how I got started. I had no idea what was in store and all that comes with it,
Right.
before just giving it a shot. And hopefully, lots of what I've said before is encouraging that it is open to everyone. You can always find ways to make yoga work for your body, whether you're looking for like more of a challenge or less of a challenge, something that's like a little more calm and peaceful, or something that's still going to keep you, getting your heart rate up and using your body strength in your workout. Like if those are your goals, then we'll help you figure that out and make it work for your body.
Awesome. Awesome. Hannah, tell everybody where they can reach you at, website, IG, even your physical address for those who are in the Peoria, Illinois area.
Sure. Yeah. So we are soulsidehealingarts.com. We are on Instagram as Soulside Healing Arts, and we are at 1311 Southwest Adams in Peoria. So again, that's about 5 blocks south of Zion Coffee, right at Adams and MacArthur, near the Cedar Street Bridge, that MacArthur Street Bridge, right in an old brick warehouse there.
Alrighty. You heard it first from Miss Hannah Ramlo of Soulside Healing Arts Studio. And if you have found inspiration in today's episode with Hannah, then please sign up to my newsletter, the Success Fitness newsletter. When you sign up, you will get 10% off of my new e-cookbook, What's a Meal Prep for Beginners, which includes 3 recipes for 1 high protein meal that's under 600 calories, step-by-step written and visual instructions, and also a free workout ebook. This brings us to the end of another episode of the Success Fitness Podcast. I want to thank Hannah Ramlo for finally coming back to the podcast, because I finally invited her. So this was fun. This was very educational, and I did try that those yoga videos that you sent last time, and some of those poses were tough for me because I wasn't as flexible. But I've been working on my flexibility.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah.
I really thank you, and thank you all for listening to the Success Fitness Podcast. And remember, if any situation in your life is not making you stronger, simply chant more weight, more weight, more weight. #more weight. Peace out.